Good evening, or good morning if you're listening later on, or good afternoon if you're listening another day. Welcome to whatever episode we're on of the Third and Short podcast. Joined, as usual, by producer Jamie, and we have another replacement for Tom Higgins in the shape of Geordie Mark. So thanks for joining us, Mark. And it's quite Raiders heavy this week. Yeah, we're going to talk about last night's games. We're also going to talk about some coaching situations that have changed in the last few days, and then also just talk some nonsense about whatever we feel like. So firstly, I'll just give my very quick recap on the games last night. I was drinking most of yesterday, watched both games, don't remember either of them. I had to check the scores this morning. So there you go. That's my input for tonight. I think obviously I was going to say they were great games. I only know they were great games because I saw the score was a field goal between the two games. But I'll start with Mark. Talk us through an overview of last night, whichever game or both games if you want. What was your thoughts on? We'll go with the first game. What was your thoughts on the Bengals?
Well, to be honest with you, I only watched the first game in depth. The second game, I was starting to fall asleep and I buggered off at half time. Like, you know what I mean? It's hard, isn't it, watching games when they're late, even though they're important games when your side's not invested in them. Like, I don't know about you, Matt, but even though I'm an NFL fan, you know, like, and I don't know if this is the same for you, Jamie, but, you know, like, when it's not my team playing, even if it is, like, the AFC or NFC Championship, I still find it quite easy to turn off and go to bed, you know what I mean? But I did watch the AFC Championship game, which was the Bengals against Kansas. And you know what it is? Kudos to the Bengals because I thought they were out of it by the end of the first quarter. Like Mahomes came out, he looked unreal. 3 touchdowns on 3 possessions. Travis Kelce was catching the ball. Tyreek Hill was catching the ball. Mahomes' offensive line was protecting him in the times when the Bengals did get pressure. He wasn't getting touched. He was like massive escapability, which we saw on that touchdown to Travis Kelce. But kudos to the Bengals staff who just were brilliant and made some amazing second half adjustments. And Joe Burrow as well. I mean, where do we rank Joe Burrow NFL quarterbacks now in his second season? Is it safe to say that Joe Burrow is a top 5 NFL quarterback now?
There's certainly an argument for it, isn't there?
He could be argued to be MVP this year. I mean, like that second half, his display that second half was unbelievable. You know, he was generating yards on the ground. I had him backed for the over on rush yards. In his rush yards yardage, over was only 9 yards. And he got that quite easily. So I was quite pleased because I got some money in off that. But he was just unbelievable. He's just a meteoric rise from where he was at Ohio before he went to LSU to where he came in the situation he was put in at the Bengals, which wasn't the best and still isn't the best offensive line. He's still running for his life. But the guy's just a baller. You know what I mean? I don't know what your thoughts are on it, Jamie.
I mean, there's only one person that can be MVP, and that is Evan Money McPherson. I mean, give it to a kicker. It has to be done. I mean, I absolutely adore that man. He is great. And like I said, Burrow is getting him down the field. But McPherson walking over to the coaches being all like, oh, guess we're going to the AFC Championship, winning that. He probably did say it for the Super Bowl as well. Well, guess we're going to the Super Bowl as well. But no, he's a Florida Gator. I love him. But I think Joe Burrow's definitely winning comeback player of the year. There's no doubt about that. And I think maybe Brady was getting a little bit scared, so he decided, I'm going to retire now so I get the MVP award, because it'll be my last one. Otherwise, Burrow might have been in for it. So who knows? But it's the first time. I mean, I was throwing in random stats just looking last night. And this Super Bowl is the second time ever it will be contested by 2 number 1 draft pick quarterbacks. Ooh. Second time ever. And it is the first time ever that none of the teams from the AFC and NFC are pick 1 or 2.
It's you know, is it? It's
on what's it called?
yeah, seeded 1 or 2.
Seeded 1 and 2, yeah.
I think it's going to make for a really interesting Super Bowl. To be honest with you, I mean, do you know? Like, I only found this out today, but the Bengals were 200-1 to win the Super Bowl at the start of the season. They had the longest odds, along with the Houston Texans. They had the same odds as the Houston Texans to win the Super Bowl. So talk about the underdog. And I heard today on another podcast that actually Vegas took more bets at the start of the season for the Texans to win the Super Bowl than they did for the Bengals to win the Super Bowl. So, like, we all knew the Texans were terrible. You know what I mean? But people were still more willing to bet on the Texans to win it than they were to back the Bengals at the start of the year.
It's perfect.
That's something. And well, I was just about to say we do have somebody else who I was going to bring him in with a big intro, but he just appeared out of nowhere. If those that are watching will see that JP has just magically appeared out of nowhere. Those that are listening, you can't see it, but I'm telling you, JP's just appeared out of nowhere. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, we haven't really finished with game 1, so I don't really want to come on to game 2 yet, JP. So I'm feeling you might have a few things to say. But let's go on to your thoughts on game 1. I'm sure you've just heard what myself, Mark, and Jamie have been chatting about there. I say myself, what Mark and Jamie have been chatting about there. So what was your take on the Bengals versus the Chiefs last night?
I mean, I think it's the result nobody expected. We have to start there. I don't know anybody that wasn't a Bengals fan that didn't think they could win that game. That did think they could win that game, rather. Bizarre game of football. In all honesty, I don't know what the hell happened to the Chiefs in the second half. That is arguably the worst I've seen Mahomes play, other than maybe the first half of the Super Bowl 2 years ago. But I wish he'd done it the opposite way around. But yeah, I think that was full credit to the Bengals. I said in both chats last night, you got to credit the coaching staff. They adjusted, and they adjusted really well. They were on a hide into nothing up to half time. That call that ended the first half with the short throw to Tyreek Hill. That there's always plays in every game, and obviously we're going to come on to the other game. But there's always plays in every game where you feel like that could genuinely be quite important. That could be key, and I felt it at the time, but not with the feeling that the Bengals would come back. I thought it gave them an opportunity to come back, and I think the interesting thing about them is they seem to be a very second half team at the minute. They've started near enough every playoff game quite badly, and then come back in the second half. Joe Burrow, you can't say enough about Joe Burrow. That star was born there. I think you have to say that if he wasn't already. I think.
Hello. Mahomes is just flipped sides
the wrong way, and I seem to have screwed things up in the process. I mean, you have to say he's vaulted himself into that top tier with 2 performances, and he's one away from having something that a lot of quarterbacks don't have, and equaling a lot of quarterbacks that are considered to be some of the best in the game. So I can't give him enough credit. The Chiefs have got a lot of questions to answer now, because I don't know where that second half came from. They looked about as badly prepared as I've ever seen them. It felt a very Andy Reid playoff performance. He used to have this in Philadelphia. They would lose games that they had no right to lose. And I thought he kind of kicked that habit when he went to Kansas, because they won a lot of games that perhaps they shouldn't have. But that was a return to bad form last night. But yeah, cracking game. I obviously want the winner of that to win the Super Bowl now as well, but we'll come on to that, I'm sure.
So one thing I want to just leave with before we leave this topic and move on to your game, JP, is I like to have a look at the teams who are being knocked out of the playoffs at this stage and think, okay, these are the teams that made the playoffs but didn't quite make it. And obviously I'm invested in the Raiders, who are reloaded. They've went McDaniels and Ziegler. And we'll not go into that yet because we're going to come on to coaching hires now. You know what I mean? But obviously, you've got the Titans who are knocked out. You know what I mean? You've got the Pittsburgh Steelers who are knocked out. Then you've got now you've got the Chiefs. Who have fell by the wayside as well as my team. And when I look at the Chiefs, I think out of those 4 teams, you know what I mean? Or I've just discussed the Raiders, the Steelers, and the Titans. I think the Chiefs are going to be back next year. There was enough that I saw from them where I think they're going to be a good team. For example, that first half that offensive line unit that we talked about at the start of the year, which was mostly rookies and first-year players, you know, apart from Orlando Brown, who was brought in, and who will extend, that offensive line looked tremendous. You know what I mean? Though
Yeah.
Kelsey's obviously Kelsey. He's got way more juice in the tank. Tyreek Hill is just a freak, a cheat code. Patrick Mahomes is a cheat code. You know, they seem to have got something out of a run game when McKinnon came in and stuff like that. And the big question for them still is who's that number 2 wide receiver? And if they were to go get somebody in the draft at the number 2 wide receiver, given this is a really deep class, I still think the Chiefs are going to be in the top 4 or 5 teams for another Super Bowl run next year. I don't know about what you think.
Yeah, they're a well-run team. They keep getting things right off the field. You can't rule them out. And at the end of the day, in the NFL, as long as you've got a quarterback you can compete, you've arguably got one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league, depending on how you weight it. But yeah, can you rule them out? Well, they've still got Mahomes. Like you've just named all the players there, and the O-line's an underrated part. I said halfway through the game, this is a trench fight, and the Chiefs are battering them. The O-line was battering the Bengals D-line, and vice versa. They were having they had a great first half. I just cannot explain what happened in the second. Whether it was a confidence thing, they almost seem to be better chasers of games. It's kind of weird. You know, again, they when they found themselves behind, they managed to force it into overtime. There's all sorts of things that they've been doing like that all season. I don't know whether it's a mentality thing. It can be hard once you've climbed the mountain to keep doing it. And that's the only thing that will stop them, I think, is just that desire to keep winning. But having gone out like this, you would think it would sort of give them motivation going into next season. So yeah, I think they'll be back definitely.
Yeah, especially because this is the 3rd successive year doing the AFC Championship. Obviously, they won the Super Bowl first time, got to the Super Bowl second time, lost to the Bucs, and now they're out of this one. But I mean, you look at different teams like Bucs last year, Rams this year, they're all kind of going, all right, let's just go win now. Look at the wide receivers that are on free agency this year. Devontae Adams, Chris Godwin, Juju Smith-Schuster,
Allen Robinson, Michael Gallup. There's better ones down the list.
Christine Kirk. I mean, there's like 10 top wide receivers. You don't even have to go to the draft. You could literally just get one of them in. There's your second wide receiver right there. They could literally just go win now and just go, yeah, we want Chris Godwin. Imagine Chris Godwin with Mahomes throwing at him.
I wonder if they wish they'd tried harder to get OBJ now, because they were in the race along with the Packers. And then, well, he was supposed to be going there, wasn't he? That was the chat at one point, and then it came back, oh no, he's actually going to the Rams. I wonder if they wish they'd just pushed a little harder. Would it have made a difference last night? The one thing I would say about the second receiver thing, I agree, by the way. I think we've talked about that as a talking point pretty much all season. But Mahomes doesn't seem to want to throw it to people other than Kelsey and Hill neither. Like, there was plays, you saw the little bust up on the sideline last night where like Hardman's going, I've got the angle, I'm open, throw me the damn ball. And I know every receiver thinks they're open, but he was on a lot of plays and he wasn't looking his way. So it's not just about getting that player, it's about Mahomes having faith in that guy to deliver as well. And I don't think he has that in the other guys at the minute.
I think it's weird as well, because I thought Hardman had a pretty solid year. I mean, I don't know if that was just me thinking he always seemed to have big games, but I was just looking at his stats for the season. He only had 2 touchdowns all year. I don't know. I thought he was having a bigger year, but obviously not. 693 yards, 2 touchdowns. One of them being against Pittsburgh in the playoffs.
I don't think they've ever got the production out of Mecole Hardman that they wanted, but I think that Chiefs fans overrated him coming in. I saw him with Georgia, and he was always like a speed threat and a deep threat and a really good kick returner. I think they kind of forced a hand when there was the whole Tyreek Hill thing of we need to find some speed, and he was a little bit overdrafted. But I think he's going to be a solid player for them, but I don't think he's ever going to be a number 2 wide receiver. I think when I look at the teams who have been and gone out that AFC side, I fully expect the Bills to be back. Josh Allen's just phenomenal. I fully expect the Chiefs to be back. We've just talked in depth at what they've got. I expect the Chargers at some point to improve because they've got the quarterback. The Steelers are going to be without Ben Roethlisberger. What they're going to do at quarterback now, albeit they've got a very, very good coaching setup there. You know what I mean? Or the Titans, they're going to be, like that conference, as in the AFC South, is going to get better in a hurry. You're going to have Lawrence there. You know what I mean? Or you're going to have the re-emergence of the Texans with what they've got. You know what I mean? And of course, the Colts are still a very good team. So I'm still on the fence on whether the Titans will be able to come back into it next year. I would have thought they would have this year, though. The Raiders are in a rebuild. I think, but I think that the Chiefs and the Bengals are definitely going to be there again.
Yeah.
You mentioned, Jamie, that Devontae Adams is a free agent. He's not. I think it's done. I think he's basically coming to meet up with Derek Carr.
I don't think Devontae Adams is going to hit the market, if truth be told. He's going to get, at the very least, he's going to get tagged and traded. There's no way that Devontae Adams... Get all idea of Devontae Adams hitting the open market out your head. No one's going to let him walk for now and get nothing in return. At the very least, he's going to get tagged and traded.
It's quite surprising because I thought he was coming to the Bucks with Aaron Rodgers.
If you manage to follow Brady with Rodgers, we may as well just close the league down.
I'll tell you what we can do. We'll go on to your team later, Jamie, because we'll do likewise. We'll look at the teams that made the playoffs, and with you, obviously, some massive news about Tom Brady. Well, is he?
Still not confirmed. Still not officially confirmed.
Probably looks like he's retiring. Let's see what that looks like for leaving your Bucks as a result of that, because I imagine Matt wants to move on to the Rams game now, don't you, since we've got John here?
Yeah, I think I literally was going to just hand it over to JP. The floor is yours, mate. I know you'll have some. You've touched on it in our group chat that you've got your opinions on why the 49ers lost the game, shall we say? So over to you, mate. Fill your boots.
Well, as you can probably tell from my demeanour, I have calmed down quite considerably since like 3 a.m. last night. I'll start with the Rams because I think I've probably been a little bit unfair in I've been very critical of the 49ers. I haven't said what the Rams did well. I think it was a classic game. I think it was an old school football game. There's a lot of physicality there, even though both teams are known for the passing offenses and explosive offenses. I thought it was a very old school, proper NFC Championship game. It reminded me of the Niners Seahawks games back in the day, and not just because we lost it as well. But I thought it was a really good game. The Rams deserve a hell of a lot of credit. They haven't been able to find a way to beat us. I think it was 5 times in a row, maybe 6. I don't know, but they've always been relatively close games. Last night they just had a little bit more. Stafford probably played his best football down the stretch after looking at the end of the regular season like he was shot, to be honest. And he still doesn't look quite right. There was a few throws last night that were coming up a little bit short that I think he would have made in normal circumstances. Whether he's carrying an injury, I don't know, but I thought he was tough. He showed a lot of heart. Because I'll come on to the Niners, I think one of the things the Rams did well, they got the run game going. They haven't been able to do that against us in the past, but Cam Akers had a good game. Sonny Michel probably didn't like the stat sheet up, but he ran physically and he made sure that he got 3 yards of carry there or thereabouts. I thought he was consistent, and it made it a lot easier for them to play their game. A lot of the time, what we've had when we've played them, we've got them into 3rd and longs, and we've been able to rush Stafford and we've been able to get to him. Last night, they were making it more manageable, and as a consequence, they were on the field a hell of a lot more. We looked knackered by the end of the 4th, and it was largely because they ran I think they got to about 70-odd plays by the end of the game. So, I mean, they were on the field a lot on offense. I thought they managed the game pretty well, despite McVay losing all his timeouts, which was slightly bizarre. Again, I'll come on to a bit more about that. Sorry, Matt, go on.
No, I was just going to say the reason why I love having both of you on is for 2 different reasons. JP, you've coached the game, the plays, and you see different things to what I see. And Mark's obsession with football in general and not just the players, it's the back office staff and things like that, brings to me 2 key elements that me, Jamie, and Tom don't really have when we're on this show. We just talk bollocks. So really? It's nice to have both of you on with your knowledge, and it's not the same knowledge you both have. As I said, you coached the game for a while, and Mark's obsession is everything. So it's just nice to hear. So that's why I wanted to interrupt there, mate. So sorry, apologies. Crack on.
First of all, is Tom in witness protection? Where is he?
I can neither confirm nor deny where Tom Higgins is.
But But yeah, it was a bizarre game of football, a bit like the other one. I almost put in the chat at one point, I don't think either coach wants to win this game because McVay was giving his timeouts away like he had 6 of them. And coming on to the Niners, we seemed determined to lose that game. There's been a lot of times this year where the Niners have done well in spite of themselves. I think you could probably argue the entire playoff run has been a little bit like that. Certainly last week was. Last night, I guess the luck just ran out. You know, there's a lot of things you can point to tactically in the game. We didn't run the ball anywhere near as well as we have the entire season. You know, like that was a big thing for me. We couldn't get anything going on the ground last night. It put the ball in the hands of Garoppolo, and people are going to talk about that last interception, and it was a horrible throw, and in a lot of ways, it's the right way for Garoppolo to go out. It was a bad decision under pressure. He shouldn't really have thrown that ball up there. To me, it was second down. Yeah, okay, you're gonna need about 28 yards, but you'd sooner that than give the game away on one play, which is what he did. But I'm going to say this now. There's a lot of talk about that interception, and there's a lot of talk about the drop one by Jaquiski Tartt as well. Both horrible plays to look at and watch. As a 49ers fan in particular, it's like having a knife through the heart. But that isn't why the 49ers lost the game. The 49ers lost the game because they couldn't control the time of possession. They couldn't run the ball. We couldn't stop them on 3rd and long because DeMeco Ryans doesn't know how to call defense on 3rd and long. He's been a very good defensive coordinator. The stats bear it out. As much as I ever go at him every week, we've had a good defense this year. But 3rd and long, we do not know how to stop teams. And it showed last night. We had them in 3rd and 11s, 3rd and 12s, and we were giving them up constantly. Why on earth you would have Cooper Kupp in single coverage on 3rd down? I have absolutely no. I'm not even a defensive coach. Defense is not my side of the ball, but that seems logical to me. Your opposition's best player. Why on earth are you leaving him in single coverage against your nickel corner K1? You know, like it just seemed bad strategy to me. And there was a lot of it where you're just sitting there going, we've coached this away. And I don't even think it was individuals. There's focus on Garoppolo today. It was probably his last game in San Francisco. There's focus on Tartt dropping the ball. You know, there's focus on a few things. Kittle didn't have his best game. As I said, we couldn't run the ball. But it comes back to me and I said this about the Chiefs and Bengals game as well. There was a sequence in the game where I just thought, shit, it's turned against us. And we were still winning at this point. We stopped the Rams on 4th down near midfield. So we get the ball. 1st down, we run the ball. It was actually one of our best runs of the day. We got 9 yards. I think it was Debo. Debo runs for 9 yards, 2nd and 1. Calls us straight ahead out of the I formation, which we never run out of the I formation. We're not an I formation team. He goes backwards a yard. Okay, 3rd and 2. You know, you're not going to get success on every run. 3rd and 2, he calls this bizarre play that he suddenly seems to be obsessed with, where he puts Trent Williams in the backfield. And Trent Williams is fucking great. I'm not having to go at Trent Williams. Trent Williams is a damn good player. But motions Trent Williams as though it's a sweep and then gives Juszczyk the ball right up the middle, straight into the middle of Aaron Donald. Like, you ain't going to get 2 yards through the middle against the Rams. You have to be smarter than that. So that led to 4th and about 1.5, and we punted. And that was where I just thought, yeah, we're done. Because it was frustrating, and I'm sorry, I know I'm going on a bit here. I could see eyes glazing over on the other 3, but I do think this is important. 4th and 1, earlier in the season, we were in, were we at home? I don't know, whatever the first game was this season. 4th and 1, we were in a similar position. We called a play action pass to Deebo Samuel, scored a touchdown, and basically put the game away. I'm not saying we could have done it again, but the intent to go for that and the intent to win the game, not just coach not to lose it, was different. And last night we played not to win, not to lose, rather. We played very conservatively, very safely. And I get it because it was a low-scoring game, but that was just the moment where I went, that's it. And then immediately we give up a big play on the next play, you know, and there was a ton of other things, but that 3-play sequence to me was just dismal. And that's something that Kyle Shanahan has to improve as a coach. You know, he is a good coach. He can run a good offense, and he's been successful with us. You can't say he hasn't been. He's been to a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game. He's done okay, but there are parts of his game where you look at it and you go, there's things he has to improve here. And I think the same's true of McVay. You know, everybody's crediting him this morning, but I feel like he almost lost that game for himself last night. So I think both came out with questions to answer, but obviously the losing team is always going to get more focus. Anyway, sorry, I've talked about half the podcast there, but
No, I mean, I was just going to quickly say, in regards to it, you think if that was a regular season game at 4-1, you probably would have gone for it. It's the pressures of the NFC Championship.
Yeah,
it's the pressures of playing your biggest rivals away in their stadium for a chance at the Super Bowl. If that was the regular season game against the Rams, you would have gone for it.
Yeah.
And I think they were just worried about, if we don't get this, if we go for it and we don't get it, we're gonna mess it up, and we're gonna
give them the field position, and that's fine. I get that, but and I don't like it when people say, "Oh, analytics says you should do this, that, and the other." It's all about the flow of the game. But I really felt like
you get that. That's a big momentum boost. That's literally
exactly.
the games now. You're going to score a touchdown or a field goal because the momentum's with you.
The Rams were going to get yardage. Like even after punting, they basically got the punt yardage back on one play. That can happen with an offense like the Rams, you know. It was a bad decision, and unfortunately, it's been a season full of them. He's got away with a lot of them because we've been able to come up with some miraculous shit towards the end of games, and he deserves credit for that. But he does put himself in these situations, and last night, as I say, the luck just ran out. I'm gutted, obviously. I think you can tell from the way I'm analysing it and steadily getting more annoyed that I am genuinely gutted for two reasons. One, I thought it was a very winnable game, and two, I think it's a very winnable Super Bowl for the NFC team. Not because I think the Bengals are bad, but I think they're beatable. I don't think the Chiefs, had they got there, would be beatable. You know, I know that sounds daft because the Chiefs have lost, but it's that in your mind. You would think the Chiefs would romp away with it. So I'm gutted for that reason, but I can't be that unhappy because how the fuck did we even get there? We were 3-5 at the end of October. We were an awful football team. And we got within basically 2 plays of the Super Bowl, which is mental, really. But it's just, just a horrible
second best team in the NFC. You're going to be draft pick 29.
Well, we give it away, didn't we? So, but I mean that helps it away because now we're only giving a late first away, where we might have been given at one stage. It looked like we were given a top 10 pick away, and that would have been a fucking disaster. But you would
have taken it at the start of the season. If somebody said to you at the start of the season, "You'll go to the NFC Championship," you'd lose. But you go in there.
Can I interrupt? That. When we did our predictions show back in September before week 1, JP commented on our show and he said, "I think the Niners will get to the NFC Championship game."
Bloody hell, you did well to find that. I must have been feeling very optimistic.
I didn't know you were coming on, so I was going to save it for in a couple of weeks' time after the Super Bowl because I've made a list of who predicted what.
I think that going into the year, I did raise some questions about the team, and all the questions appeared again. You couldn't have been more right. You got to the NFC Championship game. So never mind Mr. Mystic Geordie. It's Mystic JP, I think. Mystic Cripple.
Go on, Mystic Geordie.
So when I think about this game, though, right? I mean, this Rams pass rush was fearsome going in. You're talking about a team that had 50 sacks this season. I think that was 3rd or 4th best in the NFL for sacks this year, this Rams. And you managed to stave them off all the way until that 3rd and 13 play. But Raheem Morris called up a blitz in that play. And Aaron Donald, look, regardless of Tom Brady and anything else, the best player in the NFL for the last fucking 5 years has been Aaron Donald. If you were to go, who's the best player in the NFL, regardless of position? Never mind, who's in the glory positions. Who is the best player in the NFL? It's got to be Aaron Donald. There's not another player like him. He's just, sometimes you see him lined up at edge and he does these stunts where he comes in. Other times you see him lined up as a 3-tech and he's bowling for a double team. Then they'll line him up as nose and he's getting deep penetration. Oh, that sounds a bit fucking dodgy, doesn't it? From the nose position. This guy is just an absolute, for me, he's the best defensive player ever to play in the NFL. I swear to God. I've never seen a player who's as disruptive as Aaron Donald in the NFL. And you can put Lawrence Taylor on that. You can put whoever you want. You know what I mean? Aaron Donald is an absolute freak of nature. And how he isn't 5 or 6 time defensive player of the year is beyond me. But he's just not. But that Raheem Morris on that call, just goes to show just what a game it can be and what a championship game can be of fine margins. You can dial up blitzes, you can not get home with them. But if you get home with one, you know what I mean? It can change a game. It just goes to show just how important that call was for the blitz on 3rd and 13,
Yeah, massively. I think Raheem Morris has done himself a real favour this year. I've not seen his name mentioned for any of the remaining coaching vacancies, but I'm surprised because as much talent as there is on that defense, he's getting a lot out of them as well. And he's getting it out of beyond Donald and Ramsey and the names that people recognize, and Miller, obviously, they only got it mid-season. It's not no names, but they're not. It's not like they're a team of all pros on defense. He's getting a lot out of them, I'm surprised there isn't more interest in him.
He's done tremendously when you think he came in and he'd lost his starting corner and his starting safety to the Cleveland Browns. This Rams team are built so well. They're just built so well. They literally, what they do, right, is they gamble away their top picks to bring in proven talent. Then they draft incredibly well in the middle rounds. The starters that they find every year in round 4 and 5. But then they're prepared to let them walk because they know they'll get compensatory picks and they'll just find them again. And it's like Les Snead is just like a fucking wizard. You know what I mean? Though, as like a GM, because that team hasn't had a first round pick for ever. But the starters they routinely find in rounds 5, 6, 7, 4, it's just they're going to still end up with about 8 or 9 draft picks this year because they're going to get another 3 in compensation picks. They're going to get probably a 4th for the safety who went to Cleveland, probably a 4th for the corner that went to Cleveland. Michael Brockers went to Detroit. He's going to bring back maybe a 4th or 5th. You know what I mean? And they just play the compensatory market so well, and they just draft unbelievably well at the back end of day 3.
That's it. If that's how you're going to build your team, you have to absolutely hit on probably 90% of your mid-round picks, and there ain't many teams that can do that, but they do it. They get contributions from everywhere.
Not just that, John. The 2 players who influenced the game most last night were homegrown players. Aaron Donald was taken by them in the first round, and Cooper Kupp was taken by them. Now, Stafford was a big agent free. It was a big, trade signing. So was Ramsey and stuff like that. But this team is still made up of a staple of what they can do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of them as well. And we've said it on pods before. With how they're doing it, they have to succeed. But they are doing, so you can't argue with it. There's plenty of teams that have took the risks and built a so-called dream team and flamed out. Going back to the Eagles many years ago with Mike Vick and Vince Young and all these players and Asamoah and all them and did nothing. It is a risk, but, maybe in today's NFL, it's less of a risk. I think we said in midweek as well, one of the big reasons for that now, the trade deadline's a lot later in the year. So when you can grab someone like Von Miller in week 8 because Denver have given up on him or aren't going to pay him again. You can grab a Jalen Ramsey who wants out of Jacksonville. You can do those sorts of things now that maybe they weren't open to you before. And they've leveraged it better than most teams do, without a doubt.
I've got their roster here in front of us. If you look at that offense, okay, the starting wide receiver was a 3rd round draft pick in 17. Then there was Van Jefferson, who was a 2nd round draft pick in 20. Then there's Dave Edwards, the left guard, who was a 5th round draft pick in 2019. Then Brian Allen, their starting centre, who was a 4th round draft pick in 2018. Their right tackle, Rob Haverstein, was a 2nd round draft pick in 2015. Tyler Higbee, 2016 4th round player. Then you move on to defense. Their starting nose tackle was a 4th round player that they drafted. Then, of course, you've got Aaron Donald, who was taken. Then you've got their strong safety, who was a 7th round draft pick. Taylor Rapp was a 2nd round draft pick. This team is littered with mid-round draft picks who they seem to get something out of. And it makes me sick that our team has spunking all these first-round draft picks on players that don't even make a second contract. And here's the Rams, who are finding gems consistently, you know what I mean, in later rounds, so that they're plugging in and starting. it's unbelievable the amount of 7th round draft picks and 4th and 5th round draft picks that make this roster. It's just draft wizardry.
They've got that like early 2000s Patriots and sort of mid 2000s Ravens thing about them where they're just well run football wise, and that's what keeps them. It isn't really the individual talent of the players, although they have got some incredible players. It's that keeps them there. They can afford to keep certain players around because they're comfortable letting a John, what was his name, John Johnson or Josh Johnson that went to the Browns. You know, they're comfortable letting a player like that go because they go, well, okay, but we don't actually need him, especially not for that much money. And it also frees them up to then go, okay, OBJ's available, let's go and get him. You know, these are things that good teams are able to do. And yeah, as much as it does pain me, but I think maybe we're going to see a new era in the NFC West. Maybe the Niners Rams is going to be the new, the new Niners Seahawks of years past. Maybe that's where we're going to be. But we can't rule the Cardinals out either. You know, the only team I've written up there is the Seahawks. Sorry, Jordan. But I think you're knackered until Carroll retires, to be honest.
Let's look at the teams who have got out of the playoffs. The Eagles made the playoffs. They've got so much draft capital. Do you think they're going to be back next year?
You know what I mean? 3 first round.
Sorry?
They got 3 first rounders, I think.
3 first rounders, yeah. And you think that they're going to be back again. The Cowboys, they're entering cap turmoil. They're going to lose Dalton Schultz. They're going to lose Michael Gallup. And with the emergence of the Eagles in that East Division, we don't know what's going to happen on there. Tom Brady's retiring from the Bucs. Gronk will go with him. You know what I mean? No, good luck getting any of them cheap free agent deals that you were getting to come play with Tom. You know, Chris Godwin will be gone. You know, Leonard Fournette will probably go. That team, who's going to be their quarterback? I don't hold much hope for the Bucs being back. You know what I mean? No. Like, and then you're going through and you're like, can somebody emerge from the NFC North? You know, will we see somebody like the Bears, who I think made a really good hire on Eberflus? Yeah. Will we see somebody like the Vikings, even though they're yet a hire? It might look like it's going to be Jim Harbaugh. You know, like, because Green Bay Packers are going in, Green Bay Packers haven't got the cash. They're one of the poverty franchises of the NFL because they're public owned. They're the only public owned team in the NFL. So they're going to lose Rodgers. Davante Adams are probably going to tag him and trade him. They're going to have to. You know what I mean? So I think the NFC is less wide open than the AFC at this moment in time. I do think that the 49ers, they have got questions about Garoppolo. I think he's off. I think Lance comes in. Yeah. But the Seahawks aren't a good side anymore. I expect the Rams to still be there again next year. Who will be competing against them? I don't really know. I might stick a name out now and say, I bet you the Philadelphia Eagles come back with a vengeance next year. How can they not? With all that talent that they've got, coming through in the draft soon.
Biggest problem the Eagles have got is no quarterback. Well, not no quarterback, but they haven't got a quarterback on the same level as the other teams. That's ultimately what's let them down this year as well.
If the Eagles don't get Deshaun Watson, which there were rumours to be in from on trade deadline, there was rumours that they were kicking the tires on Deshaun Watson at trade deadline. You put the Eagles, they give away 2 first-round picks here for Deshaun Watson. You stick Deshaun Watson there, and then they use that other draft pick. That team's gonna look good in a hurry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. That's the advantage. That's a nice thing they've got because they've got so much draft capital. If there is somebody they can go out and get, if it is a Deshaun Watson, obviously we've still got issues to resolve, and it feels like we've been saying that for like 18 months now. But yeah, I mean, if it does end up like that, and there's an opportunity to go get him, they can do that. They have the flexibility for that now. So I wouldn't write the Bucs off just yet, but I do wonder what they're going to do next. Because Kyle Trask ain't it. Like,
he is it. We all know it is.
I don't think he can do it in the pros. I really, really don't. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I mean, not many times, but I have been wrong before. But like, yeah, I'd be surprised. But then again, with Brady out the picture, do they have the flexibility to go and get somebody? If they go and get Rodgers, then Jesus Christ.
It's one of them. I mean, like I said, Gronk could go, most likely Fournette. But I mean, you've got the franchise tag. Who would you put it on? Would you put it on Godwin? I know we were talking about last season before, obviously, we brought everybody back.
You need a high franchise tag because you tagged them last year, so the franchise tag figure goes up if you're tagging them the second time.
So that's what I mean. Would you then tag Leonard Fournette instead?
I think you're probably going to be losing Godwin, mate. I think you're going to have to get used to
No,
that.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, because we've got Mike Evans, and that was the whole thing we were talking about last year. You've got Mike Evans, you've got Chris Godwin. Yeah, like, why do you need both? Then obviously you've got Scotty Miller coming up. You've got Jalen Darden, who's hardly even had one this year. He's got great speed. He's a great rookie wide receiver, but he's hardly seen anything. Scotty Miller was injured most of the year. I think he'll be a great second, just to rush down on his scooter. And you never know what can come in the draft. Trask for a year. If it goes wrong, we'll get a high draft pick and go for a quarterback.
Yeah.
Nothing
and
to
that
risk.
might be what they end up doing. That honestly might be what they end up doing, depending on where the team sits at the end of the year. If
Trask could go in and win it all.
If Brady does retire, and I'm not actually convinced, as most people are, that he will. I think people are trying to wish it into existence, and I do understand why, but I don't know. Like, it seems more likely than not at this point. But it's like I saw someone say on Twitter the other day, he'll probably play another 3 years now, just to spite everybody who says he's retiring. Looking across the NFC, then, I mean, there's a lot of teams in a state of flux, and I think that's why, as you say, Mark, it is kind of it's less open in a lot of ways, because I think the teams that are being run well are pretty obvious. And then there are teams that have got big decisions to make. The Saints have just been thrown a massive curveball with Peyton deciding to leave. I think that could really put them in trouble, especially if they go for Dennis Allen, because, I mean, you guys are Raiders fans. You may remember the Dennis Allen era in Oakland. I don't know, but I know not everybody, you're never as bad the second time, maybe, unless I'm trying to think of somebody that...
Let's hope that's true for Josh McDaniels. I mean, I'm having a look here at the Bucs roster because Brady leaving is going to make such a huge difference, Jamie.
Definitely,
Chris Godwin is... His spot track value at this moment in time is 18 million per season. You know what I mean, though? He's an 18 million pound per season wide receiver. And you've got Mike Evans, 20. Then you've got your starting centre, Ryan Jensen, who's due to hit the free agent. Then you've got Carlton Davis. His spot track value is 19 million. You know what I mean? So that's a hell of a number. Rob Gronkowski, I think he'll retire with Brady. Yep. You've got Jordan Whitehead, your safety, who's going to be hitting the market. Then you've got
he's the only one I care about. Keep Whitehead. Whitehead had a great
you've got Ndamukong Suh, you've got Alex Kappa, you're starting guard, you've got Leonard Fournette, you've got Will Gosden. It's going to be an interesting thing to see what happens in Tampa now, that because also as well, your GM Jason Licht, he couldn't find a starting quarterback until you were wasting picks or you were throwing darts at Jameis Winston. You know what I mean?
Winston.
At least he wasn't throwing darts at himself. It could have been worse. Been a lot of injury.
Does it bring questions? Does Bruce Arians stay? Bruce Arians might just go, you know what it is? Brady's gone. It's not going to be good for a while ago. I'm going to lose these other 4 or 5 players with him. Does he just go now as well? I think it's going to be fascinating to see what happens in Tampa. It must be nerve-wracking for a Tampa fan.
I think 2 or 3 are going to stay. And the 2 I would want to stay, because I think Rojo's also up to leave as well. I think his contract's also up. So that's Ronald Jones and Fournette. You've got to keep one of them. Fournette based on form. Franchise tag Leonard Fournette and keep Whitehead. And then if the rest have to go because of cap, fair enough. You've got a decent free safety. And then you've got your running back. Kyle Trask. It might be one of those where we just really run heavy. Leonard Fournette can do it. Who knows? But yeah, it is going to be interesting.
If you can find a feasible starter QB with the Falcons and the Panthers and the Saints there, who would know,
Could get Jameis back. Yeah, you could if you really want. I mean, we could all do with a laugh. I said we could after last night.
Let's let Matt move us on to coaching hires.
I'd just say we've got about 15 minutes left, and we did want to talk about the coach merry-go-round that seems to be taking place right now. I think the first one for me to talk about would be the Saints. What's happened there? I think that was a bit of a shock, us to me. And then we'll just slowly move around the league of what's been agreed and what's been what's still to come, I guess. So I'll go to Jamie.
God.
Jamie first, in as was in your
Thank
division.
God. Yeah, hate him. Glad he's gone. Hope he gets hit by a bus on the way out. I'm done.
I mean, do you want to be a little bit more reserved, or
hate him?
Do we think it's Dennis Allen's job there? I mean, they're going to want to keep that defense together. That pretty much held them together. Do we think that they're going to keep Dennis Allen there?
Dennis Allen, though, I mean, that's not a hire that's going to sell season tickets, is it? Jesus Christ!
Anyway, though, John, they might as well keep
James
up working
Winston
well
will
for
sell
them.
season tickets. Don't worry.
They might as well keep what was working well for them, which was the defense.
I get it, and I think you're right. I think that is what they'll do, but I don't like it.
They're going to be fucked anyway with the cap situation and like how little ammunition they've got. I mean, they're going to fall into the abyss for about 3 or 4 years, and they might as well do it with Dennis Allen, who's built a good defense. You know what I mean?
They could always just give Taysom Hill another 15-year contract or something, just to straighten the gap out. But yeah, they're in trouble, and I think Peyton knows that, and I think that might be why he's walked away. I bet he's in Dallas next year.
Talking of teams that give stupid contracts away, the Raiders. The Raiders look like we'll be announcing our head coach this evening. GM was announced yesterday. It's going. I'll pass over to Mark in a sec, but it's going for. It's the Patriots, isn't it? Basically. So, how do you feel about it, Mark?
I'm all right with it. I give the McDaniel hire a C. I give the Dave Ziegler hire an A. I think we've probably hired the best come GM out of a lot of them. I know a lot of us wanted Dodds from the Colts, but Ziegler's an amazing talent evaluator on his own right. He's been in charge of the player personnel for the Patriots, and a lot of the free agents that they've done amazingly well on has come through his workings and his scouting. What I'm interested in is, I know that a lot of the pundits are jumping on this. Bill Belichick coaches don't do very well. All this kind of stuff, and when you look at it, there's only 5 playoff appearances for Bill Belichick coaches, and 4 of them are Bill O'Brien. You know what I mean? So you kind of think but the thing is with Josh McDaniels is though, and the reason why I'm all right with Josh McDaniels coming in is I don't think he's going to try to replicate the Patriots in the West. I think what he is, he's an offensive-minded coordinator who can build several different forms of offense. He's done that in his time at the Patriots. He's done 2 tight end offenses. This year, he's had running back heavy offenses. When he had Randy Moss, they had a wide receiver offense. When they had Brady, they were doing a short game offense. McDaniels, I think, will come across and will create his own identity as opposed to trying to be the Bill Belichick of the AFC West. I think he will come out and adapt to what is needed. The question mark obviously arises is, well, what about his time in Denver? But look, this was 11 years ago, and he was given complete control of Denver. He's been humbled. He went to the Rams. He then went to New England. And I think it's a very solid, steady hire. It's a C from me. It's kind of like a decent hire. You know what I mean? He's young. He's offensive. He's a quarterback whisperer. He can run many different offenses, but the Ziegler hire for me is really the cream of the crop out of them too.
I agree.
We'll see how it goes. I think it's everybody that comment is a prime example. Everybody wants to criticize the hiring of ex-Patriots coaches because the stats bear it out, and even the ones that have been successful, like Bill O'Brien having 4 playoff appearances is fucking wild. I don't really know any other way to describe it, but yeah, I can see why they've done it. And his major move in Denver was pissing off the starting quarterback and trading him. Well, I don't think there'll be many Raiders fans too unhappy with that if he does that to Carr.
The thing is, right, is who will his hires be? So there's lots of tangible links to him. Mike McCoy, who was last seen in LA at the Chargers, he was his OC at Denver. Marty Morwig, who's just been fired from the Ravens, was his defensive coordinator in Denver. I wouldn't be surprised to see him come in. Adam Gase, Adam fucking Gase could be another one who could come in as offensive coordinator. You know what I mean? Chad O'Shea at the Browns has got a tangible link to him. Joe Judge at the Giants could be a special teams coach.
To run the special teams and quarterback sneaks.
He could feasibly build a staff where you've got Josh McDaniels, You might have Mike McCoy, or you might have Adam Gaze. It's going to be Josh McDaniels' offense anyway. You know what I mean? So the guy who's in there is going to be like the Greg Olsen kind of thing, holding the clipboard, working with a positional group. So you could see like a Josh McDaniels, Adam Gaze, Marty Morwig, Joe Judge, kind of like, you know what I mean? Or kind of like which would be three former head coaches in the NFL, and a guy who many tipped to be a head coach at one point. I don't think it'll be the end of Gus Bradley. I cannot see if he wants to do anything. I just can't see him wanting to play a cover 3 defense. It's just if he goes, I'm building my own offense, but the defense will keep it the Patriots way. Marty Morwig, I think, would probably come in because he's got the Raiders tie, because he used to be our linebacker coach as well, of course. Mm-hmm. So I can see him coming in, like, you know, and Marty Wilkingdale, sorry, you know.
I think the thing about it for me is like, if nothing else, it's a style, it's a philosophy, and that's something the Raiders haven't really had in quite a while. It feels top down now. It doesn't feel like one side briefing against the other. It doesn't feel like one man's got all the power like with Gruden. It feels very much like, okay, we know the way we want to be. Can we actually get there? And I think for that reason, I've got to give it some time to work out. I'm skeptical, but it's going to be interesting. It'll make life interesting.
Yes.
Obviously, in that division as well, they need offense, because look at the teams that are in that division, especially if the Broncos do get Rodgers. That's, you know, you're going to need to start generating some points, and that's probably a good reason to go for him.
I think out of all the Belichick hires, this is the one I would feel best about hiring, because he has got his own identity and he does change that offense so much. The second thing is if Dave Ziegler follows the Patriots way, I fully expect the Raiders to trade back in round 1. The Bengals might trade up because they still need offensive line talent. I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders don't make a pick at all in the first round of the draft this year. You know what I mean? Because I can see the Patriots way is to trade back and to accumulate more picks. And I wouldn't be against that. I wouldn't be against the Raiders dropping back to like 31 or 32, allowing the Bengals to come up and get their offensive tackle at 22. We get another second round pick in the process and get somebody like Devontae Wyatt from Georgia or something like that to play defensive tackle. I'll be surprised. I was all in on us getting a wide receiver in round 1, but Josh McDaniels, apart from Randy Moss, has never really played with big name wide receivers. I'm kind of thinking that it will be somebody like Devontae Wyatt, somebody who's like this kind of like building block player, like, you know, real lunch pail kind of player, won't excite anybody. I think Dante Hightower is also a free agent from the Patriots. If there's a market to put money on Devontae Hightower being a Raider next year, I'm backing it. You know what I mean?
I think if you look at our last first round wide receiver, I think we should probably avoid that with how that happened and how that went down with Mr. Ruggs. I think as we've got a few minutes left, I think we'll have a very, very quick sweep around. What are the teams that are left? There's the Vikings, Bears, Dolphins, Jags.
Eberflus for the Bears is a shock because they've got Justin Fields. I would have thought they would have went offense, but Eberflus is an excellent coach, and I think he's a good hire by them. Of course, the Giants have got the Giants have went out and they have went and hired Brian Daboll. Another interesting hire is Ben McAdoo going to the Panthers as their offensive coordinator. That was a fucking shock. You know what I mean? So there's been a few moves there that I've mentioned. I don't know if should we hit on the Giants quickly? Brian Daboll, what do we think?
I quite like it. Again, it's a philosophy. Again, and I'm talking offense here because I think offense is important, especially in today's NFL. We keep saying about DJ, keep writing him off, and, you know, fair enough, not the most talented player, maybe, but it's hard to judge him because he's not been put in a consistent offensive philosophy. He hasn't been given the opportunity to develop. He won't get long here neither, but at least he's got something to work in that actually makes sense, and we've seen it work. He's no Josh Allen, but it will be interesting to see what what he can come up with. I quite like it. I think it's a bit of a splashy hire, but they tried to make the solid hire last time and it blew up in the faces. So I can see why they've gone that route. I think every team's done that to a certain extent. The Bears have gone from hiring the offensive genius to kind of going back more to the roots, if you know what I mean, a strong defense. I think that is a really good hire. Who else? I mean, Vikings is an interesting one because there's rumours Harbaugh's going there, and well, that could be interesting. He's going one of the only places colder in the world than Michigan. If he's going to fucking Minnesota, which is a bit bizarre. I didn't think he would go to a team like Minnesota if he was going to go back into the NFL, but maybe he doesn't think they're that far away. They've certainly got some talent, but yeah, I get the feeling he might inherit a team on the downslide there, and that's for somebody that's quite a short-term success at head coach. I don't know how that will go. If indeed it is him, the Jaguars search is a complete mess because Trent Baalke's there, worst GM in the National Football League, and I know there's a lot of competition for that, but trust me, the guy's a clown. There's a lot going on. The Saints is going to be interesting. It does look like they're going to go Dennis Allen. The Texans are going to hire Josh McCown, and I don't know what to think about that. That's the equivalent to the 49ers ringing me up tomorrow and offering me the offensive coordinator job. I don't get that at all. There's one thing that has surprised me this year. There's less going on in terms of like the hires aren't happening as quickly as they usually do. Now, I don't know if that's teams trying to be a bit more considered, or maybe it's because a lot of teams had GMs to hire as well. I don't know, but there's definitely not been as quick activity this year. Bieniemy hasn't had an interview, which is a bit of a surprise, as far as I'm aware anyway. So, yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on, but you can't judge a coach hire until they've started coaching. This is the problem. You know, sometimes things we've thought would turn out dreadfully have turned out pretty well. Things we've thought would go great haven't. You know, Matt Nagy looked like a genius 2 years ago, and now he's considered to be an idiot. You know, these are things that can turn in a moment. So who knows? But it's going to be an interesting year, I think, and it's always nice to have that little bit of optimism if you're one of those teams. So good luck to him.
I think this pretty much wraps that up. I think, and then we are pushed for a little bit of time. Was that you saying you wanted to come in there, Jamie?
No, I'm just saying he's wrapping up.
I thought you were saying come to me. So I mean, what I didn't ask you, JP, is are you happy with the season you've had? I know right now you're not happy with the result and things, but overall, he sort of touched on it earlier. He said he did well to get there, but do you see it as a successful season?
Jesus, I'm going to have to try to do this quickly, aren't I? I think the 49ers put a ceiling on this season when they traded up in the draft because it was always going to overshadow the team all year, and to a certain extent, it didn't. Which is good. I think there was a lot of issues before the season. There was things that were wrong with the roster that I go back and listen to our podcast. I pointed them out. With all that in mind, yes, it's been a successful year, but you can't help but be pissed off when you're 3 points away from the Super Bowl. And I'm going to say this, and I don't care if any Bengals come around in white hoods and burn my flat now.
Okay.
I think if we got to the Super Bowl, we would have won it, and I think that's the bit that's frustrating me. It's not losing to the Rams. The Rams are a good team. It's the fact that I feel like it would have been our 6th Super Bowl if we won last night, and that's what makes it hard to evaluate. But I'm sure after a few months off football, I'll probably be thinking, yeah, we had a good season last year. We can come back and do it again. So probably overall, yeah, I'm just trying to be a bit more open-minded about it.
Amazing. Like I said, you predicted it before week 1. Another great episode, guys. Thank you very much for joining us, Jamie, Mark, and JP with his late entrance. And thanks to all those who have watched live or listened live, and all those who don't listen live or watch live or whatever. Thanks again for tuning in. Nice little comment from Bones there. You have Trey Lance to look forward to as well. It's there's no real football next week. There is the Pro Bowl, I guess. So, we are going to come back on a week today in some way or another. Who knows who will be on? Might be Jamie on his own. Don't know. Well, that's when we'll try and get as many as we can on from both shows, because we'll try and do our Super Bowl predictions and make it a bit of a fun episode, I guess. But no, thanks everyone for joining us, and hopefully we will see you all next week. Thank you.
Yeah, just finally finish.
Oh yeah. Well, if they're watching live, they do follow us on all them. I imagine.
You never know if they're listening on Spotify. They might go, "Oh, what is this American football show?" Oh, there you go.
Google Third and Short podcast.
Google us. There'll be a picture of Matt. You'll love it.
Yeah, at Third Short Pod.